And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today, I'm talking with Craig Andrews. Craig, first of all, thank you for being my guest and squeezing me into your calendar.
Oh, thank you. It's a delight to be here. So excited.
It is going to be a really intriguing and interesting conversation. So Craig helps business owners get first dates. How about that? We'll just leave it at that, Craig.
Yeah.
But he's going to help you really learn how to build trust with your prospects so they become clients. He's got a very interesting, unique, fun way to do that. But as we get into that, Craig, tell us, how in the world did you get to doing this?
Wow, it has been a long and wild road. So in high school, I was not what you would call a model student. And so as I was approaching graduation, I realized I would not get into any university that you've ever heard of. And so instead, I went in the Marine Corps. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, moved to Japan, learned Japanese, just a fascinating, amazing time. And when I was approaching getting out of the Marine Corps, I thought, well, I want to be an engineer because I want to create things. So I applied to North Carolina State University from Japan. I walked my application down to the Japanese post office, got back to the US, I was accepted, and I got a bachelor's and a master's degree in electrical engineering. I even had a really nice job in engineering when I discovered engineering is not the place to go if you want to be creative. It was a surprise. It was, and it took a lot of education for me to figure that out. So I thought, well, what do I want to do? And for about a decade, I started marketing semiconductors for mobile phones. And so I've been in some of the former biggest mobile phone makers in the world. The only one that's still on top that I visited, I was at Apple. We got in to talk with them. But I guess Samsung, they're still on top. Been to Samsung many times. And it was a lot of fun. And but the margins in that business, they just fall off the cliff. And I knew the day would come when they would ask me to fly to Asia and coach. I used to go to Asia 4 or 5 times a year. And I'm like, no way am I doing that in coach 4 or 5 times a year. And when that day came, I thought, well, hey, I'm pretty good at marketing semiconductors. Let me go try marketing other people's businesses. And it's funny, when I run into folks from the old semiconductor world and they ask me, say, Craig, what have you been up to? And I say, I've been spending the last 10 years learning how little I know about marketing. I mean, it's just been such an amazing journey of discovery of so many things that top companies, I drove over $500 million of revenue in the semiconductor world, not using even a fraction of the tools that are available to marketers.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's been a neat journey.
Very cool. It's very cool. All right. So you work with business owners, small business owners, large business owners, where they need to build trust with their audience. And too many times when we go about trying to convert, as you would call them, a stranger, right? A prospect, whatever we call them, trying to convert them into a client, we do it seemingly way too fast. And we get no's a lot because there is no trust there. Talk a little bit about that process and what you have found that actually works better than the way that most of us do it.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a mental picture. So imagine how it would go if I walked into a bar and I saw somebody cute on the other side of the bar, and I walked up and said, hey, you're kind of cute. May I have your phone number? What the heck? Let's just get married. Well, obviously that would not go well. And so we don't do that because it's inappropriate. But for some weird reason, when we're getting into either high ticket or high trust sales, that's exactly what we do. We go up to a stranger and we're like, hi, how do you do? For a financial advisor, hey, may I have your hard-earned life savings to manage on your behalf?
Right.
I will do well, I really promise. And that's an insane amount of trust. And we think, in the same way that, if I go back to that bar scene, if I see somebody, I might start, first have an introduction, then I start having a conversation. We figure out if there's something there. And then the next step is not marriage or something else. The next step should be, you know what? Why don't we meet for coffee?
Mhm.
And if you think about the way that this goes, and as the ladies tell me, they're driving separately and they have one of their girlfriends that are going to call in about 15 or 20 minutes to see if they need a rescue.
Yeah.
And, so there's all these safeguards that are put in place to take the risk out of that date. Now you go on the coffee date because you hope it turns into big things. That's both parties are going there, hopefully, because they think there may be something more, but you put these safeguards in place just to kind of test the waters. And so we think businesses should be doing the same thing. And it's kind of like a coffee date for high ticket, high trust sales.
Mhm.
And we call that first time offer. And it's a irresistible offer that when you put it in front of a qualified candidate, qualified customer, their only answer will be yes. If you put it in front of somebody that's not qualified, we found that most of the time they say no, thank you. They come up with some excuse why not.
Mhm.
But it creates that coffee date, and you get like it has a minimum of 3, maximum of 5 deliverables. There's some reasons for that, but in the process, one of those deliverables is the product of a co-working session where you work on the solution together. And if you think about it, you're coming alongside somebody and helping them solve a problem. There are few things that build more trust than doing that with someone.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So you're not, let's go back to the financial advisor, just because that's a great example. I meet you, we talk. I'm not initially going to ask you to move all of your assets to me in that first, second, or third meeting, but we might do a smaller thing. For instance, college planning. Maybe you have a kid that's free. Let's deal with that. I'm doing a big analogy, trying to granularize this a bit. You work on that and kind of say, here's how you should be planning for college, making sure you're doing these types of things. And then once that's done, now you've built the trust to go, okay, now how about the other areas? Is that kind of a ballpark idea?
Yeah, well, and let me drill in a little
Okay.
deeper
Yeah.
on that, because financial advisor is a great example. So there are 9 personas of high net worth investors. The number one is called the family steward. They represent about 34% of high net worth investors. Their primary goal for investing is to create a financial legacy for their kids and grandkids. The number 2 persona is the independent. They represent about 17% of high net worth investors. And their primary goal is to be able to walk into work one day and tell the boss to shove it
Yeah.
and go live life on their own terms. So as you're thinking about first time offer, the first time offer that's going to work for the family steward is much different than the first time offer that's going to work for the independent. And what a lot of financial advisors do, they have kind of a standard template. Hey, do this, we're going to score this, we're going to do this analysis, blah, 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 and all the way through. Well, if you get a family steward, and they often have a lot of money, and the other thing that's really great about family stewards and independents, they're not really interested in getting in the nitty gritty. They're looking for somebody to do this on their behalf.
Yeah.
And so the thing that you would address in the family steward, first time offer would somehow address their ability to accomplish their main goal in investing, and that is to create a financial legacy for their kids and grandkids. And so it won't be, hey, move your stuff over to us. It may be, you know what, there have been some changes in the tax laws, or there have been these other changes, and we find, we have this kind of 10-point checklist or whatever that we go through, and we're going to do this, this, and this to make sure that you can achieve your goals. And if I think a little bit more deeply about that, so some of the things that I've heard from financial advisors are that the gifts are imbalanced. So they may feel like they're giving the same amount. Let's say they have 2 kids.
Yeah.
They may feel like they're passing on the same amount to both kids, but after the taxation, that it's imbalanced.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that might be a deliverable in the first time offer is we're going to look at your inheritance planning and make sure that the gifts are balanced after taxation, so you achieve what you want. Now, somebody that's never heard that before, all of a sudden is going to have alarm bells going off inside them. They're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to inadvertently screw one of my kids or create
Right.
this this anger or potential conflict between my kids because I did this. And so you go in and you solve that problem for them. Well, when you do that, you become the default provider, the default financial advisor, um, before they've even transferred their money over. All that trust is with you, and it just becomes easy from that point forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's very cool. Something else I was intrigued as I was poking around your website and learning stuff is the Harvard study that talked about how buyers need to self-educate is the word I'm using, right? And that's different than it used to be. And I think buyers have changed, sellers haven't. We tend
Yeah.
to. Can you talk about that change and why it's so important to build trust and to elongate the sales process sometimes to give the buyer time to educate?
Yes. So the study that you mentioned, 60% of the customer journey is self-education. So that means your customers, your buyers have pretty much made up their mind before they get on the phone with you. And so part of your job is to equip them with this information. So, we were talking about kind of stages of courtship. You have an introduction, then you have conversation. We have a term, so a lot of marketers call these things lead magnets. We hate that term because it's a little bit mercenary. We use the term conversation starters because it's content that's intended to generate a conversation. And so again, you can, if you look out there, there's like all these generic reports that just talk about generic financial advising. Well, the reality is, if you're a finance, and didn't intend to go and focus strictly on
That's right. No,
advisors.
it applies to everybody. We're just
Right.
using them, but this applies to everybody.
Well, it turns out of the 9 personas for high net worth investors, financial advisors really good at 2 or 3. And they're really bad at 2 or 3. And then the ones in the middle, they can kind of make it work, but it's not really fulfilling. So you figure out who your 2 or 3 are. And if it's a family steward, you want to tailor your content to help them self-educate on this, to start raising questions that they can bring to you. And it's funny, I have a buddy that's an accountant, and I keep telling him, I said, look, you need a conversation starter. We don't use the term lead magnet, but you need a conversation starter that's something like the 10 tax breaks most small business makers are, small business owners are missing. And it was funny. He's like, oh, I hate those. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, my clients keep coming to me. They download this thing from the internet and they keep coming to me with them. I'm like, oh, so you're telling me it works.
That's
Is that
right.
what you're
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I just don't like it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's really helping. And that's, it's funny. To this day, that's a frustration of mine. I don't feel like my CPA helps me put together a tax strategy.
Right.
And it's so frustrating that, I just did my taxes recently. They did my S Corp filing. And this year I decided to do my personal filing. And when I was going through doing that, I started discovering all these things I didn't know. And it would have changed the way I would have made some decisions.
Yeah.
That, I was doing charitable giving through the business. And I think I figured out that only gets only 60% of that's deductible. I'm like, well, holy cow, I could, if that's the case, then I would just do a distribution to myself,
Right. Then
do the charitable giving, and then it's 100% deductible. That's important information that I'm not getting. And so if you think about whether it's financial advisor clients or accounting, they have needs. There's information that they're not getting. Now, if all their needs are fulfilled, it's going to be really hard to bag them as a client, but chances are they have some unfulfilled needs. Use that content to help them self-educate towards these needs. And that's where you start triggering things. You're like, if somebody came to me and say, Craig, we're going to tell you, here's how you should do as an S Corp business owner, here's how you should do your charitable giving to, one, maximize the charity that you give,
Right.
But number two, to minimize the number of taxes you pay in the process. That's a unmet need in my life. And guess what? Somebody help me understand that. I get on the phone with them.
That's right. Yeah, because they're allowing you to self-educate. They're not necessarily cramming it down your throat. They're saying, here, read this, whatever this conversation starter. It could be download, could be a video, could be all kinds of things, right?
Right.
But as they read it, they start realizing, ooh, I like this guy. I like Craig. He speaks my language. He understands what's going on. I think I'll take the next step. And that's what we teach our clients all the time is marketing is really a step-by-step process. And I tell them all the time, fewer than 3% of the people are in the market today for what you offer. There's 67% of the people who are in the market someday, next week,
Right.
a year from now, 7 years from now. Are you going to be there? Are you going to be that trusted resource for them so that when that day comes that they're ready to make that call, you're the only one they think of because you've educated them. You're the purveyor of all this information to help them solve those. Are you willing to be patient in your marketing, in your selling, right? Is that kind of what you I'm saying it in a different way, but it sounds like we're saying the same things, right?
No, absolutely. Patience is key. The other thing I would add to that is, are you willing to be transparent? So I see a lot of people that say, hey, once I tell them this, they have no need to hire me. And I can tell you what my experience has been. So we're talking about these first-time offers. They're insanely hard to put together. They look simple, but they're very hard to put together. And I know the secret sauce. And there's a part of me that says, oh, if I release this, somebody will know the secret sauce and then they'll go do it. What I found, I released the secret sauce. I had this happen yesterday. I was on a call. There was one thing that I stressed. I was like, your first-time offer must solve a problem. It absolutely must solve a problem because if it doesn't solve a problem, it's not going to be attractive. And by the way, an assessment or an audit doesn't solve a problem. It just exposes the problems that are there. So don't use that. So I say that. That's a key element. That's part of the secret sauce. No kidding. By the end of the call, I had somebody ask me, hey, could I just use an assessment? And so the point of that story is, you're an expert. Hopefully you are an expert. If you're not an expert, you need to go work on that. Go become an expert. But if you are an expert, you're an expert for a reason. And the things that appear simple to you are hard for others to do for whatever reason. They will overlook the small differentiators that are important. And so I would encourage people, in addition to what you said, just be transparent. Don't hide the secret sauce because there are other experts out there that can figure out the secret sauce with or without you. But in terms of your customers, they're looking to you to bring that secret sauce, and it's going to be really hard for them to replicate. You'll have some that will try, they will fail. They'll say, oh, that method never works. And you'll know, well, it's because you missed this, this, and this.
Yeah.
But just be transparent.
And it's really interesting, Craig, because in selling, when you've got a prospect on, don't tell them the price till the very, 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 very end, because you have to build up all the value so they can justify it, right? And I mean, I followed that for a long time, and a year or two ago, I said, I'm going to do it just the opposite.
Yeah.
And so, Craig, here we go. Here, by the way, here's the investment I'm going to ask you to make at the end of our call, if it makes sense. Now, everything that we talk about is going to be based on that. Okay, here's what we do. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, Craig, the investment, the prospect. What would you like to do?
Yeah.
It took all the pressure out of selling, because I'm not selling on. There you go. What is it that most people want to know? How much is this going to cost?
Yeah.
Tell them.
Right.
And then explain everything and have a conversation, be totally transparent. So it's very interesting. What you're talking about is it's important, it's true, it's accurate, and it's I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It's elusive.
Yeah.
In a sense, right? And it really shouldn't be, because it is human nature. But all of the gurus out there are structuring things this way. You have to do this. No, be yourself, be open, be transparent. I love the transparency aspect, and just say, here's the reality. Okay, we're on a sales call. Hey, Craig, I hope at the end of this call that we've bonded enough that this is the right fit, that you can become a client, we can serve you. That would be my hope. Let's talk about that in terms of how what we do benefits you in your company. Can we do that? Okay.
Yeah.
that just opens up the whole door to just, all right, let's talk. Because I don't have a hidden motive somewhere. We all know why we're on the call. Okay. Let's just put it on plate. Sorry. You hit one of my buttons.
Well, here, let me throw a twist out to this, because this is, and every, you've obviously evolved your processes over time. Let me throw this out, just food for thought. We talked about this first time offer being like a coffee date.
Yeah.
So if we think about a coffee date in real life, does every coffee date advance to dinner?
No.
No. The coffee date is to see if it makes sense to make a step forward.
Yeah.
And so we actually put this on our website that here's our first engagement with everybody, regardless of what they're doing, what we're trying to do. Our first engagement with them is $497.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to pack $5,000 of value into that $497. They get a lot for that.
Hmm.
But we say this very clearly on the website. Once you have that, often it's some type of action plan, 3 to 5 deliverables, number of things. We say you can take that and execute it yourself, or you can take that to someone else and have it execute on their behalf or on your behalf. Or if we mutually agree, we'll help you execute it together. And what we're saying right there is, we don't know if we want to do business with you. We're not dubious. We're just like you go on a coffee date, you're hopeful that it advances to something else. But in the process of doing this, you may discover that we're not right for you. Or we may discover that you're not, for whatever reason. Maybe we discover, what, don't think we can help you as much as we'd like to, or we don't think we can help you at all. And so we kind of take that pressure away of, there's no commitment past this coffee date. You're going to walk away with $5,000 worth of value for $500. And it's just a wonderful thing in terms of just being, we're talking about transparency, but also taking the tension out of that engagement.
Yeah. And that's really cool, because it allows you to have the time with that person. And it's that time that really builds the trust. You're delivering a solution in that. You're wowing them, and they're getting to know who you are and how you actually operate. That is what builds the trust, because we can all look good on the outside and say the right things, and our websites can be phenomenal, but it's not until we engage in something. I love how you do $497. You're going to deliver $5,000 worth of value, give them some information, give them a solution to say, okay, now you go do it on your own. Hire somebody else, hire us, work. What would you like to do? Again, it's putting the decision-making power into the hands of that prospect. And that's what builds the trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think you and I could probably talk for another hour or two. I think we're just scratching the surface, but you're probably one of the few people I've talked with, Craig, honestly, that is approaching selling in this high relational, full transparent approach, and where you're actually delivering value. So you've got a barrier to entry, in a sense, of $497.
Yeah.
Okay. If they're not willing to do that, great. We're not a good fit anyway.
Right. Exactly.
Go somewhere else. It's okay. But I don't have to invest $38,000 with you. I can invest $500 to get my feet wet and say, okay, I might do another whatever. Step by step. Think about how you could apply that in your business, because that approach, that philosophy works.
Yeah.
So you can go figure it out on your own, or you can reach out to Craig and have that conversation. What is the next step? What is the process of reaching out to you and somebody going from, all right, Craig, this is pretty radical. What's the next step for somebody?
Yeah. So you can come to our website. It's alliesforme.com. That's ALLIES, the number 4, me.com. And for your audience, we made a special gift. And if you go to alliesforme.com/experts-speak, all one word, all lowercase, you'll get 2 things. One, you'll get a guide on how to build a first-time offer. Just so you know, I fumbled around for 18 months trying just to get something sort of started working. My first time offer was a complete failure. Nobody wanted it. Nobody understood it. Nobody bought it. And so it took 18 months to sort of get it working. And then over the last several years, we've really perfected it. We're continuing to perfect it. But I learned a lot of lessons in the process. And this guide will help you avoid some of the mistakes I made. The other thing we're doing is we're giving 23 days access to a self-paced course to help you build your own first-time offer. And the reason we're limiting it to 23 days is very simply this. I know if we give you lifetime access to this course, you're going to sign up, you will never use it, your life will not change, the selling environment will not change. We believe the current selling environment is broken. We want that to change. So we put a 23-day limit on it. I had a bunch of people sign up yesterday. And boy, they're in there, they're working, and I can see it in the activity, and they're learning, which is awesome. And that's exactly what we want.
Awesome. All right. And so that's both those are available when you go to this special link that I'm going to have in the show notes. So if you're exercising, driving your car, whatever, go to the show notes and grab it, alliesforme.com. And then it's going to be /experts speak, the name of our podcast. That's where you're going to sign up for this free offer, and you can start working on your own first-time offer. And then obviously you're on his website, so then you can reach out to him. You can learn more about what they do, how they can help you build that trust that is so elusive. It's what we all talk about. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. How do you build that trust so that you can help people walk one step at a time at their pace and be there to serve them, to solve their problems, and to get them to do business with you long term? Fair?
Absolutely. Yes.
Awesome. Craig, man, thank you. This has been an intriguing, eye-opening conversation. I really appreciate what you do and how you're approaching the process of selling, converting, gaining clients, whatever we call that process in a new way. And I really appreciate that, because you are all about trust and transparency, which really are that's the name of the game if we're going to be around long term. So thank you. Thanks for being
Absolutely.
here.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a delight.